Good morning.
Shalom, everybody. The Torah study this week is sponsored in Yeshivat Elimelech, in loving memory of Jill Sachs' father, Chaim Feivel ben Baruch Shimon and Chaya Eta, by Mordechai and Aviva Weizman in memory of Mordechai's mother, Adela Bas Raphael and Esther, and by Sam and Thera Swirsky in memory of Sam's father, Nachum ben Shepsel. So I don't think that I ever brought Proverbs into our study, but I think this might now become my favorite chapter in the whole Tanakh. Proverbs is basically, it's called in Hebrew Mishlei, which literally means parables, but most of it is not parables. Most of it is just observations of Solomon about the world. For example, go to the ant, somebody who's lazy, and if you see her ways and you are interested in actually learning, then you will become smart. But chapter 26, and also Eshet Chayil, is definitely not a proverb. It's not, sorry, it's not a parable. It's about describing a woman who is excellent in all ways possible. Today, ultra Orthodox rabbis would deny some of the things that this amazing woman does, but um, chapter 26 is mostly dedicated to comparing a wise person to I shouldn't use the word stupid, but that's really what they're talking about. And also, amazingly enough, in the laws of Pesach, or sorry, in the liturgy of Pesach with the Agada, the Jerusalem Talmud, instead of saying the Ben Rasha, the evil son, they say Ben Tipesh, a stupid son. So I'll just give the first verse because it's really fascinating. Kasheleg b'kayitz v'chamatar katzir, like snow in summer and rain at harvest time. So honor is not fitting for a ksil, a stupid, or in agronomist. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it correctly, but yes, because we're not expecting snow in the summer or rain during the harvest, especially not in the Middle East, and so that's what Solomon compares it to. And in verse 11, he makes a very interesting observation about a dog, and the dog, according to his observation, returns to its vomit, and so too a stupid person repeats their wrongdoing. And Sharet Tshuva, Rabbi Yonah of Gerundi, explains this, and King Solomon, peace be upon him, uh, which is something that now Muslims use all the time, and I'm sorry, but we make all kinds of other proclamations about our ancestors. So King Solomon said in Proverbs 26:11, as a dog returns to its vomit, so a fool repeats his folly. Uh, I think that folly comes from the word fool. Its explanation is that a dog eats disgusting things, but when he vomits them, they are more disgusting, yet the dog returns to eat them. Such is the matter of a fool, for he will do a disgraceful act, but when he repeats it, it is even more disgraceful, as we explained. Um, One of the rabbis in Israel actually said that he knew a dog that loved eating toilet paper. Toilet paper is not giving them any kind of sustenance. It's just a ridiculous way. And so, because this dog could not actually um, process toilet paper, uh, when it threw it up, literally, it would go back and be excited to see this toilet paper um, and try to have it again. So that is a very, very high standard in terms of chametz. But let's learn the halacha and try to understand it based on that observation of King Solomon. So, chametz was originally fit for eating, but that became moldy or spoiled to the point that it is not fit for human consumption, is still considered chametz gamur, meaning complete chametz, since it can still be used as a leavening agent, even if it's not used for bread. It can be used for making alcoholic beverage. It can be used for making cheeses, because there's very active enzymes, and so in this respect, chametz differs from all other forbidden foods, which are no longer forbidden once they become unfit for human consumption. So if somebody has a piece of what the Gemara calls davar acher, the other thing of pork that is made into chemicals or whatever, it is allowed to take as a medicine or whatever was made out of it if it cannot be fit for human consumption anymore. Chametz, in contrast, remains forbidden even when it becomes unfit for human consumption, since it can still serve as a starter for another dough. Only if the chametz became so spoiled that it is unfit for consumption by a dog, it is not considered food at all. It no longer has a status of chametz and is permissible to keep it during Pesach and derive benefit from it. So in the message, I wrote that we're still not supposed to eat it, but of course, if it was made into some kind of medication or whatever, according to the Torah law, it would be allowed. And so, rabbinic decree, however, it is still forbidden to eat it on its own, for by eating it, one shows that they consider it food. And the same principle applies to all food prohibitions, even if it is no longer fit for human consumption. The sages forbid eating it. And again, just because I gave the example of medicine doesn't mean that that is forbidden. Any medicine that is to save a life is allowed, even if it's actually pork. So if a doctor says the only thing that will save this person's life is if they eat pork or blood or anything else that is forbidden, of course that is 100% allowed. I was just trying to say in terms of if it's chemically treated, just because it is not, we can't chew it or such. That is the law, but we are allowed to have it in our presence if it is no longer fit for a dog's use. So the yardstick of being fit for a dog's consumption is relevant only for measuring the spoilage of chametz or seor, but if seor was not spoiled but only became so sour that it is not fit even for a dog, since it is good seor, like yeast, that functions as a leavening agent and is usable like regular yeast, all the laws of chametz apply to it, and one is required by Torah law to destroy it and get rid of it. This law that one does not have to burn chametz that was spoiled to the point of not being fit for a dog's consumption applies only if it became spoiled before the time that chametz becomes prohibited. So therefore, if at the end of the 5th hour on Erev Pesach, we poured chlorine or some other detergent on it, that is considered like biur chametz, burning and getting rid of the chametz, because that is it is no longer fit for a dog's use. And one of the most amazing things is, even though it only happens 11 times statistically, 11 times in 100 years, that Erev Pesach is on Shabbat, meaning that the eve of Pesach is on Shabbat, and so we have to finish eating our chametz, which we are obligated to, because we're supposed to have lechem mishnah, the second loaf of bread on Erev Shabbat, on Shabbat morning. Then the way to get rid of chametz obviously would not allow burning, because we're not allowed to set a fire on Shabbat, but we are allowed to pour a detergent that would make it not fit even for our dog's consumption. So, but if it was fit to be eaten by a dog when the prohibition of chametz began, then even if it became spoiled later, to the point of being unfit for a dog's consumption, one must eliminate it. Since the mitzvah of eliminating the chametz has taken effect, one has not discharged his obligation until he has destroyed the chametz completely, and that's why even after burning the chametz, we still say the declaration of may it be hefker kafar da'ara, may it be annulled and completely unusable for us, like the dirt of the land. That is the proper way to get rid of it. And last but not least, it is important to note that all of these laws are conditional on the chametz having initially been fit for human consumption or for preparing human food, like starter dough. But if it was never fit for human consumption, even if it was fit to be eaten by a dog, the prohibition of chametz never applied to it. However, the chametz in food prepared for dogs and cats was initially fit for human consumption, and it therefore must be eliminated. Something that was not initially meant for eating, but was in fact fit for human consumption, under pressing circumstances, is chametz nukshe, as described above. But so the real understanding or deeper understanding of this law is if you have cat or dog food in your house, it must be kosher for Pesach, because it is fit for a dog's or cat's use, and therefore for that week you don't have to get rid of it before that. The people who say that chickens or domesticated animals that were shechted before Pesach because they have in them grain that is chametz is a ridiculous chumrah. And so it's just if you actually have dog or cat food in the house, in your possession, it must be replaced by kosher Pesach food. And we'll stop here and open up for questions.